Hey guys, today I'm super excited to show you this printable sewing pattern to make a DIY face mask. Now this mask has a built-in wire so you get a really good fit around your nose. It also has a pocket on the inside so that you can add a filter, as well as I'm going to walk you through how to create your own HEPA filters using items that you probably have around the house, and a couple different alternatives that you can use for these the side elastic bands, because I know that it's been really difficult to get your hands on elastic lately. Also, if you stay till the end of the video, I'm also going to walk you through how to create these really comfortable headbands with the buttons on the side so that your face mask can attach to the headband and it will never irritate your ears. This comes in so handy for people that are wearing these masks for extended periods of time. For this tutorial, you'll need some fabric scissors as well as paper scissors, some HEPA quality vacuum bags. You'll be able to make several DIY mask filters out of one vacuum bag. You can cut them up, follow the pattern, and I'll show you all the steps. As well as some 100% cotton fabric and some 100% cotton lining fabric, as well as 2 elastic hair ties if you don't have elastic on hand. You'll also need the 3-page printable sewing pattern for this tutorial. You can find this at creativefashionblog.com and just search face mask if it's not in the description below. You'll use your paper scissors to cut out each piece, and it comes in 3 different sizes: small, medium, and large. The small is intended for children size 6 to 12, medium is for women, teens, and most adults, and the large is for men. Just pick out the size face mask that works best for you and cut out all 4 pattern pieces. Once your paper pieces are cut, it's time to cut them out of fabric and your filters. For this tutorial, we'll be using 100% cotton and your HEPA vacuum bag for your filter. Cut out each piece twice. I like to get my sewing pieces ready to be assembled as I'm cutting. To do this, once each piece is cut, you're going to separate your 2 pattern pieces and then put them together again with the right or the pretty sides together. We'll just be sewing along that front curved edge for each of these pieces, so pin them up in place and set them aside. Again, we'll be cutting 2 100% cotton lining pieces of the bottom of your face mask and the top of your face mask found on pattern page 3, as well as 2 pattern pieces of your main body face mask on pattern page 1, and 2 pieces of your filter cut out of your vacuum bag found on pattern piece 2. You'll only need to pin them in place across that front curved edge, since that's where we'll be sewing. You'll sew these in place using a standard straight stitch at a 5/8 seam allowance. Your seam allowances are already added to your sewing pattern, so there's no need to add extra. When it's time to cut the filter, first you'll need to open your vacuum bag. I like to trim it across the top so that you can open it wide, and then open it again at the bottom so you have one solid sheet of fabric. This is going to give you the most bang for your buck, and you'll have the most usable space to work with. From here, you're going to treat it like any other fabric and cut 2 filter pattern pieces. The only difference when it comes to working with your vacuum bag is when it comes to sewing this piece together, you're going to use a wider stitch length because you want the least amount of needle puncture holes as possible in your filter. While you're at it, it might be a good idea to cut a few extra filter pieces, since this is the only disposable piece of your DIY face mask. After you've worn it a few times, you'll want to switch out your filter, whereas the rest can be washed in a washing machine. When it's time to sew, you can sew a straight stitch along the front curved edge at a 5/8 inch seam allowance. When you're sewing your filter, extend your stitch length to about 3.0 and use a smaller needle if you have one on hand. Here I've sewn the lining of my face mask, and I've also hemmed the bottom with a serger. You can also use a narrow hem or a standard hem. And I have my other pattern pieces sewn into place across that curved edge. But in order for your face mask to curve nicely around your face, we're going to cut small triangular shapes out of the seam allowance of these pieces. Use your paper scissors to cut it out of your filter, making sure that you don't cut into your stitch line, and your fabric scissors to cut into your cotton pieces. These tiny notches make your seam allowance expand easier, so it is much more comfortable to wear around your face. Once you've trimmed the seam allowance of all 4 sewing pattern pieces, it's time to assemble the lining and the base of your face mask. Open up your 100% cotton exterior of your face mask and attach the lining at the center front seam. Hold it in place with a pin. Then you're going to work your way down across the curved edge at the top of your lining and pin in place. Your lining is going to end about 1/2 inch before the edge of your main fabric piece. This is intentional, don't freak out. Once you're done on one side, just work your way down the other side until the entire top edge of your lining is secured with pins. Then start on the bottom using the same method. When everything is pinned into place, it's time to sew. Here, you can see the curved edge along the top and bottom of my face mask. Now, for my seam allowance to fall nicely on the inside, and for me to flip this inside out, I'm going to use the same method and clip little triangles out of the seam allowance, making sure that I don't go into my stitch line. You're going to do this across the entire top of your face mask, but you only need a few at the bottom since the bottom is a relatively straight line. Once your notches are cut, it's going to be significantly easier to flip your face mask right side out. Bring your seam allowances all the way out to the front so it looks really pretty, and give it a quick press if you like. Next, we're going to top stitch 1/4 inch away from your seam edge across the top edge of your face mask. This casing is where we're going to slide our wire to give our mask a much more fitted fit overall. If you don't have any wire on hand, you can use jewelry wire, an expanded paper clip, or even take apart the metal hook of a Christmas ornament and use that instead. Use pliers to round one edge of your wire before sliding it through so it doesn't snag on your fabric. Slide your wire through the base of your fabric, making sure to not press too hard for it to puncture your cotton and come out. Now it's time to finish off your face mask. Fold the top of your lining over the bottom, and then we're going to pull that front piece of your cotton, the 1/2 inch that extends past your lining, back over and pin and sew into place. This is going to create another casing, so you have several options of how to attach your straps. Now that your edges are sewn, your mask is nearly complete. It's time to put your filter in to make sure that it fits correctly. Slide it in the top edge and then gently work its way into the corners. It should fit nice and snug. In my opinion, the filter is the most important part of your face mask because without it, it's really just cotton. Once your filter is in place, it's time to attach the side straps. Since elastic has been so difficult to find, I'm using hair ties. Just cut them in half, and then you have about a 7-inch strip. If you happen to have elastic on hand, cut 2 pieces of 7 inches. If you would really like elastic and would prefer to not use hair ties, you can also cut apart a scrunchie and you can find extra elastic in there, as well as cutting a t-shirt into strips, and you can create some elastic that way. Since our hair ties are much thicker than what my sewing machine can handle, I'm going to hand sew these into place using a regular hand sewing needle and universal thread. I'm going to put the top edge of these hair ties into the casing we've created and then hand sew it into place. If you're using elastic, you can stick your elastic into your casing and then just top stitch across the top and bottom edge of your face mask where I will be hand sewing today. Once all 4 sides of your elastic are sewn into place, your face mask is complete. It should fit really well, have that nose guard so it gets a really nice tight fit, and the filter should be more protective than regular cotton fabric. Now you can either stop here and enjoy your new mask, or we can move on and create those headbands so the elastic never bugs your ears with extended wear. To create the headband, you're going to take 1 piece of stretch fabric and cut it 6 inches wide by 16 inches long. Make sure your fabric is extra stretchy. You can even use a spare t-shirt or something like that if you don't have any fabric on hand. Your first step in assembling your headband is to fold it in half hot dog style and pin along the long top edge. You're going to sew it with either a zigzag stitch on a regular sewing machine with a ballpoint needle or using a serger. Once your fabric is sewn, it's time to flip it right side out. After your fabric is right side out, lay your seam line in the center of your tube. This is going to be the back edge of your headband, and it's also going to give your buttons more durability. From here, you're going to fold it in half, hot dog style, and sew and pin along that short edge. This is going to create the tube that's going to essentially be your headband. Once the short edge of your headband is sewn, it is basically complete and ready for wear. Feel free to try it on to make sure it's comfortable before adding your buttons. To get the correct button placement, measure 1.5 inches in from your back seam line and place your buttons there. In this case, the larger the button, the better, because it will make it easier for your elastics to wrap around them when you're in a hurry. Once your buttons are sewn in place, your headband is ready to wear with your new DIY face mask. I hope you guys really love this tutorial. Thanks so much for watching.